Good evening and thanks for joining us on Facebook and on our website, brproud.com. We're giving you the very latest information as this storm system continues to make its way through the capital area. Obviously, this is just the first wave. We've got a much bigger picture ahead of us. Another batch of storms going into the morning hours of tomorrow. We're talking just around daybreak, and that's where we have the potential for all modes of severe weather. But obviously, with this round, heavy rainfall has been the issue out there. We've got numerous reports of some flooded roadways out there, some ponding water, those areas that are typically prone to seeing water. So what we're seeing so far, most areas, anywhere from 1 inch to 3 inches of rainfall, and that has added up quickly. They've issued a flash flood warning, the National Weather Service, for Ascension, East Baton Rouge, Iberville, and West Baton Rouge, because they are expecting an additional 1 to 2 inches of rainfall this evening before we get a little bit of a break before that next round arrives. This is in effect until 6:30. The concern is that if it's not flooding right now, that we could be seeing the possibility of some flooding within the next hour to 2 hours once we start to get a little bit of runoff where all that high water is currently situated. So as you see here, again, a lot of areas have 2 to 3 inches of rainfall already on the ground. And again, we could see a lot of areas shortly within the next hour to 2 hours starting to see a little bit of flooding. Now, luckily for us, the local streams and bayous should be fine. This is just those areas that typically flood. Again, the areas of concern, your backyard, the ditch in front of your house, maybe it's the park right down the road, or those low-lying roads. Those are the areas of concern. But it does include a pretty large portion of the viewing area, 72,000 people. Most likely underneath this area of concern, from Plaquemine and Bruley and Addis across the river all the way down towards Gonzales, St. Gabriel. We're talking Prairieville, Santima. That even moves down into the Dutchtown area. Very heavy rainfall. And as you see, big picture here, what I do want to point out is that we've got a little bit more rain on the way. Notice some rain. It's in the light to moderate category. It's not super intense as that first wave, but still, there is that potential that we could be seeing maybe another ½ inch to another inch of rainfall with this next wave coming through. Obviously, the current concern is all that runoff. Luckily for us, we had a tornado warning across Livingston, St. Helena, and Tangipahoa Parish. That was a little bit earlier in the evening. That has expired, and we've dropped from the severe weather threat. It's now more of a rain threat right now, and we're talking obviously the chance for a lot of areas seeing some flash flooding. So I do want to show you, just to give you an idea of how much rainfall that we were kind of talking about. And you'll see here, these are estimates, okay? So again, this is nothing 100% accurate, but there have been some spots. Obviously, we didn't see 5+ inches of rainfall, but a lot of areas sat in that 2 to 3 inch category. And you'll see that's just a little bit north of Gonzales, just around the Galvez area, just around a little bit south of Dutchtown, some heavy rainfall around Philadelphia Point, White Castle, Southwood. Again, a lot of that's going to drain into some of our local bayous. And also a little bit further north, you can see around Springfield and Killian seeing some very heavy rainfall. Albany, a little bit south of 190, a lot of that rainfall is going to eventually filter into the Amite River Basin and even over towards the Tickfall River before it moves back into the lakes. Now, again, even though the Mississippi River is high at this point, that is not a concern for us. I'm just talking about some localized flash flooding that will be the issue, because we are still anticipating a little bit of rainfall, I would guess, for about another hour to 2 hours. That's currently what our FUTURECAST is showing, and you'll see here, I'll show you that in just a second. FUTURECAST right now is kind of calling for, again, this is our high resolution model, so this is short term. This kind of updates a little bit more frequently, but you can see some pockets, maybe some lingering showers kind of redeveloping along that line until about 10 o'clock this evening. After that, those storms should start to fade and push a little bit further south. Again, that's the concern, that we do get a couple more pockets that kind of fire up and produce some pretty intense rainfall rates. Once that passes through, we do get a little bit of a break. But as you see here, we've got that main wave that we've been talking about over the last couple of days. That arrives around probably between the hours of about 5 and 10 for our entire viewing area, with that main wave coming between about 6 and 8 here for the capital area. That line drives from southern Mississippi all the way down to our coastline, a little bit south of Acadiana. That one I'm concerned about. Straight line winds, possibly greater than 60 miles per hour. So that can do a lot of damage. Stay weather aware. Also have a game plan and be ready to put it into action tomorrow morning. A lot of these storms for far northwestern portions of the viewing area could come in before you wake up. We're talking between the hours of 4 and maybe about 6 o'clock. So 4 to 6, maybe 7 o'clock. Obviously, this line could shift up a little bit, maybe an hour or so. It could shift back a little bit, so we could see those storms move in around 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. I do want to point out also, again, that in this line, there is that potential that we could see a couple pockets where it starts to bow a little bit, meaning we could see some possible rotation, and that could obviously spawn a couple tornadoes, isolated tornadoes, along that main line as it continues to push through. Heavy rain, also a big concern, along with the potential for some very large hailstones. Now, luckily, once we get into the afternoon, we'll start to see a little bit of clearing, and then after that, it's a very dry pattern. So we do get back to a stretch where we don't have to really worry about too much in the way of rainfall. But I do want to point out that tonight, we do sit underneath a slight risk. That's for more so western portions of the viewing area. That shifts tomorrow morning because we move from that 6 to 7 o'clock hour. That shifts a little bit further towards the east. It's just that time in between day 1 and day 2, and you can see that threat, how it starts to slide through the capital area. So all modes of severe weather are possible. I think damaging winds, straight line winds, and large hail are going to be our greatest issues. But again, there's always that possibility of an isolated tornado across the area. So I do want to point out again that this is just the first wave, and you see here on the big picture, that's just kind of an outflow boundary that kind of buckled a little bit in a couple spots. And where it started to bow, that's where we saw a little bit of rotation. That was mainly north of I-12. We did get some reports of some trees down in Livingston Parish. We also have got some reports of some roof damage also in Livingston Parish, just around the city of Livingston. We also got reports of some hail, mainly in the pea-size category with this system. And obviously the concern right now is we are getting flood reports. It's localized flooding. This is not widespread flooding. This is not going to be an issue for our rivers and streams. But notice, big picture here, we've got a bunch of storms kind of ramping up for our next round. And that extends from the upper Midwest, from Wisconsin, moving across Lake Michigan, across the state of Illinois, Missouri, into Oklahoma as we speak. And then eventually we're going to start to see more storms kind of fire up across portions of Texas, moving into Arkansas, and even northwestern portions of the state around Shreveport and Bossier City a little bit later on tonight. So be well aware of that if you're kind of picking us up somewhere else across the country. So again, a lot to kind of watch as we head into those early morning hours. And as you see with this system, very violent already. We've already got a tornado watch across portions of Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. Severe thunderstorm warnings are kind of firing up along that line from Missouri up into Illinois. And we're just going to have to watch that tail end of that front as it starts to drive further towards the south. So we're going to see more storms develop. Main wave, obviously, tomorrow morning. But again, we're still watching this concern. And as you see here from the Jackson area, still dealing with some rainfall. Most intense rainfall rates now are actually sitting south of Highway 90 right now, from Jeanerette down towards the Morgan City area. That's where the rain's really going to start to pick up. We've got a couple pockets just around Donaldsonville right now, between there and Gonzales, that are a little bit heavy at this point. But again, it's runoff now that's going to be more so the issue. And then obviously, as you see back here a little bit, you can see that we've got more rain developing on the backside. And the concern is, do these storms start to fire off more storms? And that's where we start to get the concern of training. Because if we start to see some of these storms redevelop and then push more so in a northeasterly direction, well, then we have that potential for more heavy rainfall. As you can see, a little bit of rain developing just around St. Francisville, New Roads. It's kind of in that moderate category now, but do those pockets really start to fire off? So far, not much in the way of severe weather. We're not seeing too much in the way of lightning strikes out there. It's not as stacked as that front line that drove through from, well, just earlier today with that very heavy rainfall. And obviously, you can see now that main band now starting to slide its way down towards New Orleans, towards Morgan City, and then towards the coastline. So obviously, just jump back to the big picture out here. And if I can get it to it again, you'll see here the concern, obviously, is that flash flood warning. And let me load it up here for you. We'll jump back to that. Yeah, that flash flood warning, which remains obviously in effect until 9:30 this evening. So if you do run across some high water obviously do not drive through it. That's not smart. Just remember that a few inches of water, 6 inches, could swipe a person off their feet. Again, that's running water, that's moving water, but again, it's never smart, and we live in South Louisiana. We know what's in the waterways around here. You could get some snakes, you could get other creatures out in that water, so please do not walk through that water. Do not drive through the water. If you see a barricade, do not go around that barricade. Wait till those waters recede a little bit before getting back to where you got to go. Obviously, it may be a little bit of a hindrance, but if you can wait maybe another hour or so, maybe 2, things should get back to normal as those waters should begin to recede. Again, the concern right now is more so runoff, but there will be the chance for a little bit of rain, at least for the next hour to 2 hours out there. A couple heavier pockets in the mix. So if you live anywhere underneath this outlined area, underneath this polygon, that's where you just need to be cautious. And it does look like some areas a little bit further south could be also seeing some potential flooding at this current hour. So just stay weather aware. This wave may be over shortly. We've got another one tomorrow morning. Make sure you have multiple ways to receive warnings, obviously. And we will continue to keep you updated. We're going to have complete team coverage through the overnight hours and even early tomorrow morning to kind of wake you up and make sure you're ready for those storms rumbling through early tomorrow morning. If you have any questions, if you're following us on Facebook Live, just drop me a message just below here, and I'll try to answer it as quickly as possible. If you're watching on BR Proud, we're going to have another update later on this evening just to kind of show you that this first wave, it's now winding down. The second wave, which should hopefully be arriving between the hours of 4 and 10. That looks to be the current timing as we speak. But later on tonight with the new model runs, we could see if it does shift up a little bit or if it pushes back a little bit, just so you have, well, at least a chance to sleep tonight. Obviously, with that last round last week, Wednesday, Thursday, it was an all-nighter, and it kept a lot of people up. So, again, I know there's a lot of concern out there. If you got, obviously, issues, concerns out there, just please let me know. Also, just stay safe out there. Obviously, we're going to continue to monitor this throughout the evening and early tomorrow morning. Just good luck, and we'll have more updates later on tonight.